All right, so the next Disney Dreamlight Valley update is just around the corner, and Gameloft have already started tweeting and teasing a little bit about the new addition coming to the game. What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to Oscar's Cozy Corner. So as I just said, earlier in the week, Gameloft posted out on their socials a new teaser for the upcoming update within the next couple of weeks. It's looking like June 18th is probably going to be update day, but they posted a map with an X marks the spot on it with the caption, "Looks like somebody dropped this, what could it mean?" Now, obviously, this is pretty vague. There's not a lot to go off. I know that this is a memory in the game that we have already, but they have adjusted it a little bit for this social post. So they've added like the little X and stuff like that. We're going to deep dive into that in just a sec, but it is nice to see them teasing this update so early. It does feel like earlier than I thought they were going to, although, you know, if it's just 3 weeks away, it kind of tracks, but we usually get teasers around the 2-week mark, so I'm excited. There's a lot of content to come, especially with the DLC update coming probably at the same time. So there's a lot to get our teeth into, hopefully, over the next couple of weeks and months, and Gameloft seem to be really on a roll, so I'm very excited for this. But today's video is all about possibilities. You know I love a little bit of speculation, so we do know that from the roadmap teaser that they posted in the showcase stream last year, that this update is probably going to be Peter Pan related. There's a teaser image of Skull Rock with a little feather stuck in the sand. It is Peter's feather. I know that we've been waiting for Skull Rock for what feels like years. Gameloft seem to be taking their time with it. I think it is a continuation of the Forgotten Quest, but there's still a lot of unknowns with it. I don't know whether it was kind of like originally planned. I don't know whether we kind of like bullied them into following up with it, but we do know that it's coming. We do know that the update will be here in just a couple of weeks. So let's take a look at this teaser, see what we can decipher and see what else we might be able to come up with and work out what it means. So this is the teaser that Gameloft shared. Now we can see that the X on the map is kind of like just off Dazzle Beach, around by Skull Rock, near the boat in which we take to find Ariel, kind of on that unnamed island. It was almost like a lagoon. Very strange. We've never really been back there. It was kind of like a one and done where we did the boat. You can go back there freely in the game, but there's nothing to do. It's just kind of like a little bit of beach. But it's interesting that Gameloft tend to do this sometimes. They add stuff, I suppose, to the game that never really gets used or referenced again, and it just kind of like falls behind. That's probably why they jump into the realms a lot for the events and stuff like that now, because they spend so much time working on these realms and then we never really go back. So it's nice to see them reusing something, and I'm quite excited that we get to revisit this, hopefully, even if it's just for a quest. Obviously, the boat on this map does match the one that we crafted as well to go and find Ariel, but the one thing that I wanted to note was in the Peter Pan movie, Peter does actually bring Wendy to a place called Mermaid Lagoon. Now it's where the mermaids live, and it's where they kind of like swoon over Peter a little bit, and Wendy gets a little bit jealous. But it is interesting that there is a place in Neverland called the Mermaid Lagoon. This place that they've marked on the map where we take the boat out to is where Ariel was found, famously a mermaid. So I'm wondering if there's some sort of connection there. It does make me wonder whether actually this was like longer term, whether this was always planned or whether they kind of like worked the story in to fit this. But I don't know, that feels like quite a strong connection. The fact that they've marked that boat to take us out to the place where we found Ariel, Mermaid Lagoon, Neverland, there's a lot to it. So I'm kind of wondering if this is a hint to either a story or maybe just a hint to Neverland in general being out on this boat. So it is possible that maybe the boat itself and the lagoon weren't just meant for a part of Ariel's storyline, and they've always been intended for a little bit of a Neverland storyline, whether that does turn out to be a biome or it does turn out to be a little bit of a map extension. I don't know. Very exciting either way. Fun side note, the concept art of Neverland that Walt Disney actually approved and designed for the 1953 movie is able to be bought online, so you can buy a version of it. I believe it's inspired by, but you can see that it does have kind of like all of the waypoints from Neverland. So it does have the Mermaid Lagoon, it does have the Hangman's Tree, and then also, if you've ever been to the parks, you might recognize a similar map in the queue area for the Peter Pan ride. So there is a nice little nod to Neverland, kind of like throughout Disney. And I wonder if this map that Gameloft have posted is kind of like a nod to that as well, because it does feel kind of similar to that Walt map, I'm not going to lie, even though we already have this map in the game. So I don't know. Might be something there, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it's a nice idea. So the other part that I wanted to talk about was Skull Rock and what Skull Rock might actually end up being. Now, Skull Rock has been in the game since the start and it's never been used. There was obviously reference to it occasionally with the Forgotten Quest, but Gameloft kind of like left it, and then we got that weird mail a couple of months ago, maybe it was even last year, where they said, we haven't forgotten about Skull Rock. They forgot, I think. But I do think that Skull Rock has been through a couple of different iterations of what it was meant to be. I really do believe that in the initial concepts, maybe before the game even launched, that there were plans to have kind of like Jack Sparrow come to the game, because we do know that there were files for Jack Sparrow at one point. But I definitely think it's being reworked into a Peter Pan update, which I'm not mad at. I think it's very exciting, and I'm excited to actually see what it holds. Obviously, especially with this map, a lot of the focus is on this bottom right section of Dazzle Beach. So that's obviously where Skull Rock is. That's where the X marks the spot and the boat is going out, possibly to Mermaid Lagoon. So this whole area now is beginning to feel very Peter Pan focused. We knew that it was going to be a Skull Rock update anyway from that showcase stream teaser roadmap. And I'm just kind of like really excited to find out what it's going to end up being. So I do think that there's probably two possibilities. I think that there might be, I don't know, I don't want to overhype it. So I'm thinking that there might be a realm inside Skull Rock. So I'm thinking that there may be like our first realm outside of the castle. It doesn't have to be huge. Maybe it could be just kind of like, I don't know, the size of like Mari's cave or something like that, Ursula's cave. Maybe they're a little bit small, but it would be nice to have like something separate outside of the castle that is relating to an IP that's not a house. So I don't know. I think that it could possibly be like a realm inside Skull Rock, or maybe even taking the boat out. It's not totally adjacent to Skull Rock, but taking the boat out, maybe they could expand that area where we found Ariel, and then we could have like a new biome outside of the map, because they've already adjusted the item limits if we can decorate there with the floating islands, which do not have any item limits. So I was wondering, maybe they're putting that to use in another way and giving us our first map extension. This could all be wishful thinking. It could just end up being that we find a scroll where we found Ariel, which brings us to Skull Rock. I'm worried that that might be like what it actually is, and I'm going too wild with my theories, but it would be exciting. It does feel like a big update. It does feel like a hyped update because Skull Rock has been so in demand for so long. So I don't know. I feel like it would be a nice opportunity for Gameloft to kind of like really lean into that and be like, you know what, here's our first base game map extension for free. And there's another bit of an area where you can design. There's a new biome. I think it could work, and I think it could be fun. But ultimately, it could just be that this map is like the start of the quest to bring Peter back to the valley, and then there's a little interaction with Skull Rock. I don't know. I guess while we're on the topic, we can talk about who might be coming. So I feel like Peter is a given. We know that his little feather is in the sand from the roadmap teaser. We do often get, well, we always get at least one character with the updates. We do often get two. Could be that we just get one with this update, but there are options for a second one. I am excited to see Peter. He's kind of like that classic Disney character, adventurous, fits the valley perfectly. Obviously, of course, known for his rivalry with Captain Hook, who could possibly be the supporting character. But the problem I have with that is we've started to identify a pattern where they're kind of reserving the villains from the franchises for DLCs instead. We've not had a base game villain since Scar, I believe. Anyway, we only have 3 base game villains, right? Ursula, Scar, and Gothel. So I don't think we've had a base game villain since Scar, and that has been years. Otherwise, they've only appeared in the DLCs. It could be that they're saving Hook. It could be that Skull Rock has something to do with Hook, and he does actually come with Peter as sort of like a twosome. I can see that happening given the fact that Skull Rock is his lair in the film. There's a lot to do with Hook and Skull Rock, so it would be fitting, and it would be nice if they brought him without locking him behind a DLC, because, you know, not everybody buys the DLCs. Some people like the villains, so it would be nice to have, like, I guess an antagonist storyline again back in the base game, because everything's very light, I suppose. Like, come back to the valley, join us. So it would be nice to have that like little bit of antagonistic sort of like personality come with a free base game update. Of course, the other option is Tinkerbell, but my reservations with Tinkerbell right now is that she's kind of like in some ways bigger than Peter Pan. I didn't really know that. I'm not massively familiar with the Fairies films. I know that Disney Fairies is now a huge franchise in and of itself, and she kind of like heads that up. So I'm thinking maybe they want to save Tinkerbell for like a Pixie Hollow update, a specific one. We've had a lot of fairy stuff in the game as of late. That doesn't necessarily mean she's coming. That doesn't necessarily mean she isn't coming. But I do think that the fairies are large enough to stand on their own in an update, especially Tinkerbell, because she's such an iconic character. So I don't know whether they would bring Tinkerbell and Peter at the same time. I kind of feel like Hook and Peter are probably a better combo just right now, and then they could do a proper Pixie Hollow update at some point. I don't know the other fairies, but I believe there's one called Rosetta. So the more you know. I would say maybe like the most unlikely but still possible is Wendy. She is kind of like Peter's companion during the movie, but I don't know if like, I don't know. Maybe as a supporting character, that would be a decent option to have the focus on Peter and then have like Wendy as an accompaniment. But again, we know that Gameloft likes to go back to realms. We know that they like to go back to franchises and pull characters at a later date. So I think that we will probably see some of the bigger characters first before we get to our Wendy's and maybe our Janes and stuff like that. So not to get too wild, but if this update does in fact lead to Neverland, if this map is suggesting that maybe we'll be going to Neverland and not just starting a quest, how big could this be? You know, the Aladdin realm was very big and it was just a realm. I could see them perhaps, if they wanted to, making a base game map expansion that is maybe accessed via the boat, which takes us to Neverland, which gives us a Neverland biome that we can decorate in and kind of just gives us that little bit of extra space. I could see that happening. Gameloft have been cooking recently. They've been doing really well with their updates. Everything on the whole has been really, really positive, and I love the direction the game is going. So this would just be like another boost, and I think it will be really, really popular with people, especially those that love Peter Pan, because I know that it is so popular. On the flip side, maybe it is a realm inside Skull Rock that has multiple locations. They don't have to be giant, but maybe they could be like small versions of the things that we see in the Peter Pan map, not the map from Dreamlight Valley. I don't know. I do think that there is going to be something inside Skull Rock, or we will go inside Skull Rock. So I think that's probably the most likely. Whether it turns out to be like a biome or not, I don't know. I would like it to be, but it could just be maybe a realm outside the Dream Castle. So what is it that you think this teaser could be pointing to? Could this be a route to Neverland? Am I getting too excited? Could this just be a quest? Speculation is fun. None of it is for certain. Take it all with a grain of salt. We will be getting more teasers over the next couple of weeks, and the update is just a couple of weeks away. So let me have my fun, even if I'm wrong, okay? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Let me know if I missed something. Hopefully I didn't, but there's always a chance. I will be keeping an eye out for more clues, and I will be covering any more teasers as and when they drop. But yeah, it should be an exciting couple of weeks. Hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, feel free to like it. Maybe subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I think over half of my viewers do not subscribe, so why not? Come on, let's hit the button. You can do it. With that being said, I will catch you in the next one, and I will, of course, see you in Neverland.